In the last class, we roughly talked about formation. I hope you have get for what you need to know. And today we talk about equipment. There's no need to worry. There won't be that many to learn because in Azur lane, the every ships herself have their own stats. The equipment will only give them a little boost like sugar. So there won't be only one set of gear for only one way of. And of course, some of the gear I will be mentioning in the video will take time for beginners to get. So if there is any gear that you don't have yet, then just use the transition equipment set for now because they are transition equipment, so you don't have to fully level them up. Enhance them around +6 will be enough and save your resources for your best equipment. Also, don't try to think that you can make a set of gear for every ship. If you try to spread your love evenly for every waifu you have, you'll probably go sudden death because farming is a pain. So first, we have to talk about the ammo type in the game. So there are 3 types of ammo. The 3 types are high explosive, armor piercing, and normal. Okay, let's look at the normal first. It's normal, what do you expect? Because in the game, if you want to deal damage, you have to know the armor type too. Not just only we have armor, the enemy fleet will also have armor. In general, enemy destroyer and light cruisers will have light armor, heavy cruisers and carriers will have medium armors, and battleship will have heavy armors. Different ammo type will do different damage based on the enemy's armor. For destroyers and light cruisers use high explosive. High explosive will also have a chance to ignite your target. For battleship, carriers and heavy cruisers all use armor piercing. And now let's get into the real part of what you should really use. For equipment, there is a lot of options, but based on the players who have played the game a long time, for battleship main guns, the best for beginners, there is only 2. Yep, only 2. One is the 410mm mounted gun and another one is the triple 406mm Mark 6. If she have a barrage that triggers when she firing her main gun, you will use the 410mm gun. And for the battleship that don't trigger the barrage by firing her main gun or don't have a barrage, then you will use the 406mm Mark 6. The 410mm will have a low fire rate and also can deal a significant amount of damage. That is why it's very good for barrage ships. And as for Mark 6, just shoot that baby and it will hit like a goddamn truck. For auxiliary gun, mostly just used for clearing suicide bombers. Also one thing, if your battleship auxiliary gun can equip light cruiser main gun, then just use light cruiser main gun. Don't use destroyer main gun. It's easy to understand. Bigger the tubes, better the performance. Am I right? Oh, okay, sorry about that. So for beginners, you can use twin 152mm main gun and triple 152mm main guns. These 2 guns is not really that good if you're using them as a front fleet, but if you're using them as the battleship's auxiliary gun, they are pretty good. If your battleship auxiliary gun can only equip destroyer main guns, then you can use twin 127mm Mark 12 and twin 128mm main gun. Now we move on to the anti-air slot. Azur lane anti-air requirement is not really that high for beginners. For chapter 1 to 11, the enemy air power is almost 0. If you're looking for fun, you don't even need to use them. Not until chapter 12, of course. Then the game will start remember, oh, there's anti-air system in the game. So before chapter 12, beginners can just use any purple anti-air gun and enhance them to +6 until you have the gold ones. All of the gold ones are all very good in their own way, so they can all be enhanced to +10 if you have any of them. So to make the video shorter, for the rest I will just skip the anti-air slot. Basically I'm just being lazy. Okay, now for the auxiliary slot. Usually a graduated set for battleship is a super heavy shell and type 1 piercing shell. But if you're a beginner, I don't think you can get them that fast because they can only get from exchanging from the core store, which is it will take a lot of time to get them, even though I'm still working on the second one. So, if you are new, you only have 3 choices: SG radar, fire control radar, and fire suppressor. For something else like anti-torpedoes and repair tools, don't give it to your back fleet, because the survivability they provide is too little, but fire suppressor is an exception. In chapter 10 and 11, the enemies will often firing at your back fleet and the ignite damage is a problem. For auxiliary slot, you don't really need to think that much. At the start, you can just use anything you have, you know, like having something is always better than having nothing. Moving on to destroyers. Destroyers will only have two types of DPS output, one which is the main gun and another is the big fat long torpedoes. Let's look at the main gun first. This will also split into two types, fire damage and barrage damage. Based on the destroyer's main gun efficiency, we will use different guns. It sounds hard to decide, but it's actually pretty easy. If it's over 100%, that means this destroyer can still do some damage with her main gun. So you can use something like twin 127mm Mark 12. If it's below 100% however, that means this destroyer can't use the full potential of the gun. Even if you give her the best gun, it still equals to nothing. So we will use high fire rate guns and shoot as fast as possible so she can use her barrage damage to cover her DPS loss. 200mm is recommended, and if you don't have it, then just be simple and use 76mm AA gun. And of course, as a destroyer, the main DPS is still those fake tubes. And the decision on the torpedoes is also simple, just use gold. Yes, that's almost the same, and now there will be some idiots come out and say, oh, I don't have any gold, what should I do? Then use the purple tubes, you idiot. Use them until you got the gold ones. And as for auxiliary, every beginner should use the same setup, which is repair tools and fire suppressor. Because at the start of the game, you won't have that much items that can boost their DPS output. Even there is, it's still too little, so instead we will give them more survivability. The first thing of doing DPS is to stay alive. That means 0 DPS. And now for cruisers. Light cruisers first. For main gun slot, beginners can consider using twin 150mm or triple 155mm. Twin 150mm with very good looking stat and easy to get. Also, the bullet is not scattered, so it's easier to hit your enemy. And as for rest of the light cruiser main gun, some of them have too much of a spread and can't hit anyone, or the fire rate like a grandpa walking up the stairs. So that's why twin 150mm is your number one pick. As for triple 155mm, I'm not going to talk much, you will know the good when you're using them. And a quick reminder, these two guns having different ammo type. One is armor piercing and another is high explosive. So some of the ships will have a high explosive buff and some don't. So based on your ship and choose which gun you should use. Heavy cruiser main guns don't really have that many options for beginners. I personally thinking twin 203mm SKC is the best for beginners. I'm not saying that they can't use high explosive guns, it's just that starter high explosive heavy cruiser guns are not that impressive. If you really want to use high explosive gun, then just use the prototype 203mm, which can be exchanged in the core store. Can't use high explosive is not a big deal. Usually heavy cruisers with armor piercing is already enough. And of course, if your heavy cruisers have a high explosive buff, then just use the high explosive guns without question. Now moving on to the auxiliary gun slot. Now some of the cruisers can use guns and some of them can use torpedoes. Just remember what I have mentioned previously in the video about small guns and torpedoes, what you should use, just copy that. Auxiliary equipment for cruisers is very free. If you want to have lower ambush rate and evasion, you can use SG radar. If you want to boost your DPS, you can use autoloader. But for beginners, you should more focus on survive instead of pushing the DPS limit. For light cruisers, you can use repair tools plus anti-torpedoes or repair tools plus autoloader. HP stats for front fleet is very important, especially at the later chapters. Your front needs to stay alive and let your back to do the DPS. So to make your front tankier and can take the punch, double repair tools is also an option and it's not that rare as well. And as for heavy cruisers, however, there will be a little bit different. Some people might ask why my heavy cruisers go into battle not in a few minutes, they will start to go diving. And the answer is heavy cruisers EVA is very, very low. Before level 100, heavy cruisers will usually have a lower EVA on average. And EVA also affects the survivability of the ship. If you want them to be tanky, EVA needs to at least go above 60. In this case, repair tools will be doing nothing, so SG radar, Navy camouflage, or hydraulic steering gear. If you're feeling your heavy cruiser is tanky enough, then you can use SG radar plus fire control radar to improve your DPS output. Okay, finally the last one, which is the carriers. And their weapons, everybody knows it, and that is the planes. In the game, there is a lot of them. For fighters, you can use all of the golden one except this garbage over here. As for bombers, also get rid of this garbage. And there is two suggestions. One is the overall good performance BTD, and another is the highest DPS bomber in the game, the SB2C Helldiver. Let me show you what they can do. As for the torpedo bombers, all torpedo bombers got blocked by one golden shiny handsome plane, and that is the Barracuda. Oh, wrong pick. It's this one. If you have this plane, it will swipe the ocean surface clean off. As for auxiliary equipment, there is only one for carriers, and that is the steam catapult. All the rest is garbage, okay? Just use this one forever. More AVI for carriers means more DPS, and explosions are arts. Okay, now class 2 is finally over. Hope you have learned and take notes, because this video is for beginner base. That's why there is a lot of take time equipment haven't been mentioned, but hope the video helps you. Anyway, I will see you all in class 3. Later!